So yeah, it took me all 10 minutes from completing this luggage rack for me to go ahead and tie on this old parts crate from when I was working at a Kawasaki dealership. So yeah, it's cross-branded and it's really ugly, but for around town hopping when I'm not touring on this thing, this is the functionality I want. So it's set up for my original goal, but this is a touring Sportster build series, so let's continue on down that path in that I want some good solid saddlebag support so that they're just not flopping in the wind on the whole trip. And that's what we're going to tackle today. And the first thing I think I need to do is to tack on an additional crossbar onto this luggage rack. The reason being, my saddlebags zip onto either side of this little pad and it's supposed to go underneath a passenger seat to lock it down. But obviously I don't have the passenger seat, so it's going to be sitting on this fender wheel, and that is tilted backwards, so I could see this sliding all over the place. If I put a crossbar like right there, this would sit flat, and I could put maybe a tie-down hook or something like that to keep it locked in so this won't move. And then I can bring my saddlebag supports down here to hold the bag itself. So this crossbar that I plan on adding is just so this piece will sit flat. Now, in my last build where I built that luggage rack, I went into a lot of detail on how I'm doing stuff, how I bent steel, how I cut the steel, how I welded the steel. There's no reason for me to be redundant, so we're just gonna get to work, and if you want to learn that kind of stuff, go back to that video. Plus, you'll make this one a lot shorter. So what I just created were the mounting brackets I'm going to be using for the saddlebag supports. I want to be able to take those saddlebag supports off when I'm not using it, but I need some way to attach them, obviously. Now, in previous videos, you know, I built this and we attached these cross members out here, and these saddlebag supports are going to attach right on like that. So they're going to be permanent. Once they go on here, there's really no reason to take them off until I do maintenance. I then, off camera, went ahead and made these right here, which are going to screw to them, which is why I put those nuts on, tack those nuts on the back, so that I don't, it'll be a lot easier to do that way. Just screw them on and I'll have the saddlebag supports, and this is what I'll weld the saddlebag supports to. I did create a template for all these holes, so if I ever want to make anything in the future to attach to these, I can do that. Which puts me in a timing spot right now. I went ahead and started the next video of creating the sissy bar because I needed to get these holes perfectly matched to the side of this, and once again tack bolts on here so that I can attach the sissy bar to the back rack. Because now I can go ahead and sand, primer, and paint and get this on the bike, because we are now to the point where this part of the build is done, and in order to fit those saddlebags, I want to be able to do that on the bike to get it just right. So off camera, I'm going to go ahead and sand, prep, primer, and paint these, get them on the bike, and when we come back, we'll start on the next part. And now that it's on and painted, I can tell you I did a very lousy job of paint prep. You can still see a lot of my grinder marks and stuff like that, and I just absolutely suck at rattle can painting. But it's just a luggage rack, and I'm not really too worried about it. I am kind of glad I took a little bit of time to shape this one piece. I put the angle that matches up with the angle of the shock absorber, and I tapered it back to the same amount that this bar right here tapers. And the whole reason for this bend was I kind of wanted it to be parallel with the bike going forward. I didn't quite get the angle right, so I'm going to play around with some some washers. I'm going to put 2 washers on back and 1 washer on the front, and that should get me pretty parallel. The other part is I have, this is what I'm going to be welding my saddlebag supports to, and that will simply screw on, and this is the piece that I will be taking on and off the bike whenever I am not running saddlebags. Now the length is because my saddlebags don't quite fit the way I thought they would, so I'm having to make some compromises. What I mean is I kind of thought these would be able to hug up behind my shock and be in line by about right here, but I didn't quite do the right measurements, and this is hanging way out back behind my bike. I actually need to bring them forward a little bit and probably have them in front of the shock, which means that they're going to be outboard quite a bit more. And I want to lower them pretty low because they are going to have a lot of weight in them. This is where I'm carrying a bunch of woodworking tools. So that means the strap that I'm using to connect the two together, it doesn't have a lot of Velcro between it now because it's having come so far out. So with it, whenever I attach them together with just that amount, and I've got them kind of balanced height-wise, it's a bit high. So I'm trying to figure out how I can use these mounts now to make everything a little bit nicer. Now on the back of this, you can tell I got 4 hooks on these 4 corners, and they're somewhat at an angle that the bag sits. So I need to have supports come out a little bit, forward, then down at that angle, come around, and come back and touch here. So I think I'm going to start out just bending some of the small pipe I have to fit this shape right there and go from there. So where we are at now is I went ahead and I made the U, and on the fly I decided to add these two crossbars. Not only kept them parallel somewhat, but with this one anchoring down this way, I figured this one I would be able to put two bars on it, one going below this and one going above it. And the above one can help carry some of the weight that that very thin piece of Velcro previously had to do. I just thought that top one carrying a little bit of weight off of the straps would just be a good idea. And that puts this in a position where I need about 4 inches of clearance to the shock absorber if I'm behind the shock absorber, but I also need about 4 inches above this bar on top of the muffler, and that'll give me about 2 inches of air gap above the muffler. So that's as low as I can put this bottom section, and that will tell me the angle from the shock absorber if I need to do it that way. So this top crossbar being parallel down here, or as best I could, looking at it right here, if I get it level with the bottom of this, that does put me a little bit more than 4 inches. It would probably be a safe area right here. And it kind of puts me about 4 inches from the spring. But I really do think I need to be up in front of the shock, which means, A, I've got my distance here right, but I don't have my distance this way right. This distance right here, that would get me pretty much a perfect distance away from this right here, and that would allow me to mount it about perfectly where I want it in front of the shock. So the question is, do I just cut something like this in half, weld it onto this, and then I could weld that to this top spacer right here and make it what I want? Or do I take the time to try to bend this piece back, and then down to come over here, and then this one I could just bend it around this and weld it back there, which would be a lot more elegant. Now I think, even though I've got labor invested in that, and just cutting this in half would be the simplest solution, I want to go with the elegant route. And the problem is I haven't figured out how to bend this one straight back from here using these square things as I've been doing here. So I think I'm just going to do one step at a time, and that'll give me time to think through the following steps. So right now, I'm just going to space this up about that far, get this parallel with this, and then I can just bend them straight down. Okay, I'm glad I did it that way because this gives, once I got this bent to where it was parallel with that and it's lined up here, so that basically if I just set this one flat on the ground and I bent this around, it took care of any angle right there. So this is now worked out as a pretty good template. And this distance right here is about the same, but based upon my experience with just bending it right now, I think for the next step is I'm just going to heat it up where I want it to bend or a little bit in front of that, and then just freehand bend it straight down, because all I really need to do is get it parallel with this side right here on both of them, and then I can weld it to this plate. But I'm glad I did this way because it allowed me to play around with the bag to get it just where I want it, kind of right in front of that my plate. And to do that one, I could just line this up to where it connects, and that will give me a bend point right in the middle. So that right there is going to be my bend point on either side. I can bend this down and see how it acts to determine how I bend this one so it's going to be parallel going straight down. And then we'll weld it on and be done with this part of the project. So yeah, I think that's going to work. Well, what I didn't think about is welding it only on one side. It warped the back plate a little bit, but both sides lifted up. And really, those don't matter, I don't believe, so we're all good. Well, looky there. I think this is going to work. And to think, hadn't a clue how to do it when we started out. We just had a rough idea and some scrap metal. I'm going to get the other side done and then let it cool off because it is still really hot. And then we will test it out with a set of bags to see if it works. Well, crap. Well, not everything's perfect. Evidently, when I put this together, I had the long one on the back side of this one and on the front side of that one. So when I did all these bends, it's somewhat backwards. But I can make it work. It's just the mounting plate will be different from left side to right side. But I don't think anybody will notice because it'll be behind the saddlebags. So let's just not tell anybody. Well, all isn't perfect with them, and I can almost guarantee right now that this cross pad, this cross section, it's just going to go away. I'm just going to anchor it straight to these. That way I can move them forward a little bit because there's so little Velcro connecting them. I don't think that's going to do much to it. And I'm glad I put these double things in here because that'll work a lot better in my mind. I just need to get out the straps and bolt it on, but still got to strip and paint that first. But next step, the sissy bar. And yeah, I think I'm going to go something different on that one too. Y'all be safe, have fun, and get out there for a motorcycle ride.